This is Beyond the Resume, the podcast that brings you the stories, advice, and insights behind some of the most successful people in real estate. Beyond the Resume is brought to you by Jackson Lucas Executive Search, the industry leader in human capital solutions. Here is Chris Papa and Lisa Flicker.
Pamela West, welcome to the podcast. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you for having me. I'm super excited.
So you are Nuveen, huge firm, and you lead their affordable housing practice. I mean, that's a huge job. Congratulations. What does that mean?
Yeah, so I'll just give you a little bit of history that I think is really interesting. That Nuveen is owned by TIAA, and TIAA was started by Andrew Carnegie. Andrew Carnegie invested his own money in TIAA because he realized that the working class did not have any way to retire with dignity. And so that was the sort of basis of the entire organization. So TIAA in the early 90s actually started investing in affordable housing on the debt side just by providing financing, right, to do developments. And so one of the reasons that they did it really was under the umbrella of responsible investing. And they thought, hey, we're helping people retire with dignity. We should be making investments that also support those same demographics. And it was a nice bridge for them to say, hey, we're helping retirees, but we're also investing in other ways that can be helpful. And so it started out as a really tiny portfolio. They were providing financing, like I said. And really over time, they've just wanted to do more in affordable housing because they saw this marriage of good investing along with like doing something good in the market. And they grew that platform. I took it over in 2014, 2015, and I really started helping them build it out. The way that our real estate team and group is set up is in sectors because we do believe that, generalists don't perform as well as specialists. And so every single one of our real estate sectors, whether it be office, industrial, retail, they were all separated into very specialized categories. And so everyone that works on my team works on affordable housing. So I have my own acquisitions team, asset management team, and we all just, we're all swimming in the same direction and it's great. And I believe we're outperforming because of that. But affordable housing, I head that entire team. And we just, we invest on behalf of TIAA, as well as we have some external clients that we invest with as well.
And how did you pick affordable housing as your niche sector? Was it something that you stumbled upon, or was young Pamela in school saying, this is what I'm going to do?
I would love to say it was like really intentional, but I kind of stumbled on it. So before I worked at TIAA, I worked at CBRE. I was a multifamily investment sales broker. And so I've always, been in multifamily. I love that part of real estate. And when I got to TIAA, I worked in the acquisitions team. And at that time, we were generalists. So this sectorized or sector specialty, we invented over time. But I did everything. I did office, retail, industrial. I did multifamily. And then this portfolio really kind of fell in my lap. And, TIAA was looking at the portfolio. It had a lot of different things in it. It didn't just have affordable housing. There were some retail banking. There were some other, what I would call responsible investing, investments that we had made over time. But I really looked at that portfolio and I said, hey, I think this affordable housing piece really can have legs with us in the company. And so there was another group that sort of took some of the private equity investments that we had made in that responsible investing category. They took that piece. I took the real estate piece and asked TIAA if I could have a little money to do more investing, and they gave it to me. And so we've turned it into this grand, program today. But yeah, it was just me sort of looking at this opportunity that TIAA had and seeing that, there was something there to build out. So it was exciting. I think the great thing about working at a company like TIAA and Nuveen is you do get to be a little bit of an entrepreneur in a big corporate company. And so I just took that opportunity, and I've seen that happen over and over again within our company.
What does the portfolio look like now? I mean, I remember it was big news when you took over Omni.
Yeah, so we went from, like I said at the early beginning, right? Just financing affordable housing. We did some investments, and I made some of those investments with some of the fund managers. I would call that version 2.0 of what we did in affordable housing. And as we
Yeah, I remember
started kind of getting,
I worked with one that I remember they got a big investment. I worked with one that got a big investment from Nuveen at one point. Yes.
yes, yes. And so we thought that was great, right? Because at that time they were really small managers, and we thought as a company we could use our dollars to really, it was almost an emerging manager program, right? Without calling it that. And so we grew some of those platforms, which I'm really excited about. And I love that they're still growing and they're becoming bigger. And then I said, hey, we have this whole, real estate team. We should really be doing this on our own. And that's when we started building out our direct portfolio. And then the thought behind the Omni and Paths acquisition was we also wanted to sort of control the narrative all the way through the investment. And so from the time that we acquired an asset until the time we disposed it, or, Omni and Paths, they have a great resyndication business, which works well for having a responsible exit at the end of our investment. So instead of just selling an asset, they can actually determine if we can resyndicate it and put it back into that program so that we can preserve the affordability long term.
Is there a typical day in the life of your job? Like, are there some, if somebody was interested in kind of following in your footsteps, what could they expect?
There is no typical day in affordable
I
housing.
figured.
And that's one of the things I love about it, actually. It's something different to do every day. And I think what people don't realize is beyond just investing in real estate, we really care about our residents. We're very high touch, hands on. We think about what we're doing with community service, and social services, just beyond what we invest in our four walls, but like what's going on in the community. How can we help make that community better? And so, I oftentimes like will ping our retail team and say, hey, there's a strip center right next to a property that we're looking at. Do you guys want to take a look at that and see if there's some, because it's really about, for us, the ecosystem and making, right, the entire community better, because we know we're going to make the property better. But, that's so you can go from like real estate investing to like social services coordinator. And then because there's this entire public private partnership aspect of what we do, I'm always talking to mayors or city council people, governors, whomever across the country that can help us, better our property, better the community. And so it's really fun because I don't know what my day looks like every day. I think I do. It's pretty full, but I always, I'm always thrown something else. And I think that's really fun. That excites me and that keeps me challenged.
You're a leader of a big organization. Like, what is your leadership style? Do you have a style, like a particular style?
I do. I have very high expectations of everyone. I believe in hiring really smart people to come work, on our team because it is such a complicated space. It does move at a pretty fast pace, and you do need to pick up on things, concepts really quickly, and you can't always rinse and repeat. So you have to be dynamic in that way. I give people autonomy. I'm also very direct with everyone who works with me, and I think that's something that I've been told that people like because they never guess. Did she like that? Did she not like that? Like, did I do that? Was I okay? Was I not okay? And so I'm always very direct. I like really um, picking up on things and making it a lessons learned, opportunity for everybody. And so, that way everybody feels comfortable. If they make a mistake, it's not the worst thing in the world. but we have to learn from it, and not make that mistake again. And so that's how I lead. I give people really big, clap outs and high fives when they're doing great as well. And I try to empower everybody to do their job, even, I mean, down to the analysts, like everybody has to do their job, come in and do their job every day. And so, that's part of the high expectations.
Do you ever do any speaking with any of the industry groups? Because I was just talking, I'm on the board of one of these groups, and we were talking about kind of putting together a program for the middle level, where it's like what got you to this point is not what's going to get you to the future,
Right.
leading and managing. And I feel like you'd probably be an expert at that. So we may need to tap you to come to some speaking.
Too, I do. I speak on I have a lot of interesting panels that I speak on. So some of them are some of them are real estate, industry panels. I just spoke on a panel for WX, about New York City and investing in New York City. I do, panels. Obviously, affordable housing is a very hot topic that everybody wants to talk about. And then I speak on a lot of pension board uh, panels where a lot of pension funds are really interested in affordable housing because they're all trying to do something in their backyards, to sort of help solve the crisis. Um, Even though that's a tall, right, that's a tall order across this country, but everybody's interested in it. And then, there's also impact investing, because this kind of crosses the line between real estate investing, impact investing. And so I talk a lot about that. And, I do believe like the impact that we make within our portfolio also drives returns. I think a lot of people hear impact and they go, oh, returns must be lower, they must be concessionary. But actually, we do believe it drives the return. So, I'm a little all over the place, but I do a lot of career panels. I'm happy to do that, Lisa. Just tap
Perfect. You
me.
don't know what you just agreed to, but that's great.
She's she's soliciting on our podcast. I love it. Um, there is Nuveen was early in the game on like the institutional capital and the affordable housing space. Now it's become, I don't know if it's commonplace, but it's like, it's become more commonplace. Like what impact when I started working in this space, it felt like it was mainly like a lot of families that were just doing local.
Mhm. Mhm.
What impact has this institutional capital had on the landscape of affordable housing?
Yeah, and that's one of when people ask me like what are the trends, what has the change been over the last 10, 20 years in affordable housing? And one of the things, Chris, you and I just spoke about it, but when I was helping out some of these smaller fund managers by giving them capital, of course there were LPAC meetings, and I would sit at these meetings and I was like, man, I'm the only like real estate person at the table, because even investors in those funds at the time, it was all friends and family. There was some small, family offices that were involved. And I think what has happened, which has been really good, is that affordable housing is not as scary and risky as people thought it was. I think it actually is a good de-risker, I would say. And if you have a housing portfolio and you think about your multifamily portfolio, student housing, whatever, like affordable housing, because of the imbalance of supply and demand, these fundamentals will always be there, right? These high barrier to entries, there is government support, right? And so you don't have as high of a turnover right within these properties. And so when you start speaking that language, institutional investors are like, "What? Okay, great. Fundamentals are good. Cash flows are durable, they're stable, and the market's pretty, liquid in that you can buy and sell affordable housing almost in any market cycle because the financing is available, right, through Fannie and Freddie." And so you start speaking that language, and institutional investors' ears sort of pop up and they're like, wait a minute, this is not as risky and as scary as I thought it was. Now, are there still a number of private owners and operators in the market? Absolutely. But this institutional capital coming in, owns and operates properties very differently, right? We don't mind putting in capital. We don't mind taking care of deferred maintenance. And so I can tell you when I'm buying properties from a small owner who may have been super passive, right? You'll see more deferred capital. You'll see more things that you need to do operationally. There's also upside because there is operational upside. But very differently, what I'm seeing now is because so many institutional investors have come in, as I'm buying properties from other institutional investors, it's great, right? They're well maintained. I'm not having to put in as much deferred capital sorry, as much capital for deferred maintenance. And so, it's operationally there. The rent roll is correct, right? There's not a lot of things going on that might have been a little sketchy. And so I think it's really good because it really improves, right, the quality of housing that residents can afford to live in. And I think that's a great thing for the industry overall because some of this housing was really, it was deteriorating because it's gotten older and there's not a lot of capital going back in. So I think this institutional investment is great. And it's nice to trade with another institutional
Right.
seller our buyer because we speak the same language. Getting a purchase and sell agreement done, right? Asking for a certified rent roll, looking at the settlement statement. It's just not all the sort of heartburn that I've had to deal with in the past sometimes with buying and selling properties.
Right. What? Yeah, I imagine that's a headache sometimes dealing with all the different owners out there. What? Let's talk about you, Pamela. You went to school in North Carolina, I believe. Like, did you grow up in North Carolina? Did you always dream? Did you always
Woohoo!
dream of being the head of affordable housing platform?
No. So I did grow up in North Carolina. I actually grew up next to Chapel Hill in a smaller town, Hillsborough. We're in the same county. No, I come from a long line of educators, and so I've had a lot of teachers and principals and head of schools in my family, and I thought that was my route, and that was my dream. Was to become a teacher, and I did. I taught for 2 years, coming out of undergrad. I taught for 2 years. And
What did you
then I
teach?
moved to Atlanta. I'm sorry, English.
What
Taught
did you teach?
language arts. 8th grade language arts,
Nice.
which is very similar to what I do now in that like you never know what to expect during your day because the kids come in, sometimes they want to be, they want to be treated like a small kid, sometimes they want to be treated like a little mini adult. And so I always thought that was fun and challenging. But I moved to Atlanta and I thought, what am I going to do over the summer? I need to do something. And I got this job working at CBRE and putting together their marketing package because I write, and it was really fun and exciting. And I got paid more during that summer than I did in a full year of teaching. And I thought, okay, I'm not looking back. You guys have lost me to the real estate industry. And I worked for a great group in CBRE. They were like one of the top teams, multifamily teams. And so I just jumped right in and it was so fun, entertaining and working late nights. And I just really grew to love the industry. And so that's how I ended up in real estate. Lisa, also
That's
not very intentional.
You know what?
that
That's
is
usually the best people. That's usually how it happens.
Yeah.
that is one of the more interesting stories of how people got into it. Usually, yeah, that is fascinating. So you started on like the marketing end, and then it's a big jump. There's a lot of people in real estate marketing who want to get into investing, other areas of real estate. Like how did you pick up the skill set or, what skill sets did you have to pick up to become successful in that area?
Yeah. I'm very curious. And so as I was writing the marketing packages, for me, I just didn't want to write, right? I wanted to really understand what I was writing and putting in those packages. And although there are people who were taking other parts of it, I wanted to know how to do every single part of the package. And so I would sit with our financial analyst, right? and during the night, late night, I would learn, and he was a whiz. He was a whiz. And I would just learn from him. And I would say, hey, can I take this little part from you? Can I do this little part? And I would take these little bits from him. I would take other little bits from some of the more senior people on the team. And I just started, land grabbing what I could. And that's how I learned. And then I did get my MBA. I went back to UNC. I got my MBA because what I realized, and this sort of lends itself to why I became a teacher as well. So on the brokerage side, I just kind of woke up one day and I said, what am I doing? I'm like in the middle of the transaction. I'm not the buyer. I'm not the seller. I'm just helping people buy and sell. And I was like, what am I doing? It just feels like, I'm helping kind of everybody else on both sides achieve what they need to, but I'm not really in the deal per se.
Right. Yep.
And I thought I really want to be on, the ownership side where I can make a difference, where I can decide when I want to sell, how I want to sell it, what I want to do with the property. And so I took 2 years. I went back full time. I got my MBA and I came out and I was looking for a job. And I actually interned at TIAA getting my MBA. And I thought, oh my gosh, I'm working for an organization that serves teachers and I can actually buy real estate on behalf of those teachers.
Yeah, I didn't even put together the teacher part. Yeah,
Right. And I can help them, right, retire with dignity because, I'm going to make great investments for them. I just thought, this is my dream. This makes sense for me. And I have a purpose and I know what I'm doing and I know what the end game is. So I didn't know where that career was going to lead me at TIAA, but I knew that there was alignment with their DNA and my DNA.
Which is nice because I also feel like you and them have kind of an underlying, like, we'll blend financial performance and social outcome. And I wonder, like, do you have to fight to internalize some of those social outcomes, like to not internalize them? Like, or do you find yourself like really like getting into the shoes of whether it's the people who live in the housing or even just the people who might be retiring and needing the money? How are you able to
Yeah.
kind of keep that distance? I'm
Yeah.
fascinated by that.
I really do see both, right? And I think because of my background and because I'm, coming from a long line of educators, I get the financial side of it. So the financial side of it for me is I am doing something very specific to help, right, boost those outcomes, those retirement outcomes, those ability to retire. And I have, right, a responsibility in managing their money. And so that feels huge for me on the investment side. And then on the flip side, I feel like everybody deserves to live in decent housing. I think there is this myth around affordable housing that people don't work, that they're taking advantage of the system. But, in affordable housing, I can tell you most everyone works. And not only are they working one job, they're working two jobs, sometimes three jobs. They're working very hard. And for that, I think they deserve to live in decent housing. And so I can really balance both of those because I actually care deeply about both sides of that coin. And we talk about it on team, and TIAA really cares about it too. And that's why I said there was such an alignment between who I am and who this company is and what they stand for.
Where do you see the affordable housing industry going over the next 5 years, 10 years?
Well, let me speak from the government perspective first. So I think that it's one of the only, purple issues that I think we have in our government. And we've sort of seen it, right? Like in the last two administrations, which I would say were very extreme, right? There was support from both sides in both administrations. And even, Trump 1.0, as I like to call it, when you look at like the government support, whether, he wanted it or not, it increased during his administration and, in both terms so far. And it increased during the Biden administration. So to me, that was like the litmus test that, both sides of this government believe that, there needs to be support for affordable housing. And I think that is what is going to drive this industry. In 5 years, Chris, I would say, we've gone from like this very nascent industry to, I think it's becoming more mature. And I think that instead of seeing it, and listen, when I started investing, and it probably blow your mind, I was seeing like 40% returns. It was crazy. It was an inefficient market. It was very inefficient. And so if you were in the market, there were ways to sort of, take advantage of that inefficiency, and you could still provide decent, affordable housing for the residents and services. But because you had buyers and sellers who weren't that sophisticated, you could get right good pricing, you could get in at a good basis. Now that as we were talking about institutional investors coming in, what you're finding is the market's becoming more efficient. And, there isn't that sort of disconnect, right, between what's happening with interest rates and where the market's going and the right place, to buy and sell, the right time, what part of the market cycle. And so because of that, I think those, returns that we were seeing early on, right, will start, kind of, excuse me, returning to more of a core plus or core return is what we'll see because of that efficiency. And so I think, these funds that are in the market now who are looking at, call it, I've seen somewhere between 8 and 12% returns. I think that's about right. And I think that feels about right for where we'll be, in the next 5 years.
But 40% would be phenomenal.
I think my affordable housing friends have a saying, be fine with 9.
I think that's the right way to look at it. If you're getting more out of it, then, it, maybe you got in at a good basis. Maybe you found a good opportunity. But if it was an efficient trade, I would say that's about right. 9 is fine.
Well, I imagine being an 8th grade teacher in North Carolina can be very stressful. But you're about to be even more stressed because you just sat on the hot seat.
Right.
I think Pamela's had harder than this. I think she's going to do just great. So,
All right,
so
I'm ready.
ready. Okay. Book or podcast recommendation? Anything you're currently into or think of that you really like from your past?
So I don't actually watch a lot of TV or listen to a lot of podcasts, but I do read, and I love autobiographies, biographies. And so, that's the route I would go down. I don't know if I can name one that I really like, because I'm super interested in like people's lives and what we're doing right here. How did they get there? Right. It's so very interesting. And so, one of the ones I really loved reading long time ago that sticks out to me is like Sidney Poitier's
Oh,
autobiography. It's really good. But I love reading those. And I'll tell you a personal story about a book. I don't even know how much time we have. I'll try not to take much time, but
Limited.
I love East of Eden by John Steinbeck. And I'm just because language arts, I think it's the one of the most beautifully written books that I've ever read. And it's funny, when I met my husband, who also happened to be a language arts teacher, it was one of his favorite books. And so it was already very special. But then, when we met and I realized like that was his favorite book too, it just became even more special. So
I'm going to
that's
marry
a
that
personal
one.
note. Yeah.
I grew up in a household with my mother was in the public school system. So one of my career paths was going to be a teacher. I was a sub teacher throughout college. I took my teaching exam and I interviewed actually at one place for to be a teacher, and I didn't do it. But I love language arts, and I was gonna be a history and English teacher type of person. I love that stuff too. So having it's nice to show that you don't have to have a finance background. And actually, I think it might actually be more beneficial not to have one with a lot of these real estate, because real estate's about people and it's about returns, but it's also about the people, right? And seeing things from different perspectives, like I think. which is a liberal arts education allows that to happen. Um, you are a busy person, I'm sure. I think you have kids.
I do.
Yeah. How many kids do you have? What
I have 2
ages?
kids. I have a 16-year-old boy, Solomon, who is into basketball. That is his thing. He just finished his season at school, and now we're into AAU tryouts.
Whoa.
There we are. And then I
Yes.
have a 14-year-old daughter, Kennedy, who's turning 15 next month. She's an equestrian rider. And so she's actually, she's running back and forth now between there's a horse show that happens in Florida. So she's there on the weekends participating in the horse shows. Yeah.
You
So
must have
yeah.
no free time. Your kids sound so busy, and I know what that means for the parents.
It's good fun though.
It is. Well, when my kids were in high school and we would run around with them, we now say the only thing that was worse than that is not having that now that they're in
Yeah.
college.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
my son's 15. Like what do you it's important for like mental health to not
Yeah.
always be working, right? Like what do you
Yeah.
do when you're not working and maybe not running your kids around?
I try to hang with my friends. My husband, we try to have a standing date night just to make sure we get away. But I also love hanging with my friends. Like I'm, in a bunch of like women's groups. And so I've made a lot of friends through that. And, there's always something going on the weekend. I can't do much during the week, but I certainly try to get out with them on the weekends.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Community. It's the most important.
Right, Lisa? You gotta have.
You gotta have it. You gotta have
You
it.
got
Lisa is very involved with a tons of women's organizations professionally, but a lot of times I'm involved with a lot, not of women's organizations. They won't let me in. I've tried so many
We
times,
try
but
to get you in. I
I
sneak 'em
try to get
in.
in. Yeah,
Really?
some of these
Come
people
on,
become,
you're a good ally.
but they become personal friends too. Like Lisa and I work together, but we're personal friends. So
Yeah, it's as a matter of fact, it's funny, last night, one of my a former client of mine is in a band. So last night, I went with another industry friend, and we went to watch, these 2 senior real estate executives, C-suite positions in these big real estate companies who performed in a band, and it was the most fun.
Yeah, yeah.
So maybe next year you'll
My
join.
dream my dream is to be like a jazz singer when I retire. So I need to take
I
some
love
lessons.
it. Love it, love it, love it. You'll have plenty of time when that
Yeah.
at the end of this path. So I assume you've hired tremendous amounts of people in your career. What do you look for? Is there any special skills or talents or things that you look for when you hire someone? I mean, obviously excellence you talked about, but will you measure?
Total excellence.
I agree.
Um, it's fun. I just hired 5 people in the last 6 months. And, as I think about who I hired, again, super smart people, but really, and Chris alluded to this before, they have great personalities. They're easy to talk to, right? Like this is a relationship business. And so partly being able to work well with your colleagues, being able to talk to brokers, being able to talk to sellers and buyers, like I think likability is a big factor in being successful in this industry. And so I can tell you that they're smart, right? They're likable. They don't have huge egos, which I think is a big deal. And I would say they all very much wanted to work in affordable housing. So having a passion for what we do every day because it is complicated, it is difficult. Some days are not fun. So I think having a passion for it gets you over that hump and makes you want to come back the next day.
right. One of our mottos or saying slogans at Jackson Lucas is "Your ego is not your amigo." I love that one.
I love that.
Yeah,
Okay, I'm stealing
You're
that one,
busting
Chris.
out all the sayings today. Good work.
yeah. Get your ego out of the way. Let's get this. Let's get this done the right
Yeah,
way.
yeah,
Now we don't do this alone. Which mentors, maybe not official mentors, have had the most impact
yeah.
upon you?
Oh my God, there's so many, Chris. I don't even know where to. I mean, like you can't get through a career and have a successful career without having people around you to talk about things with. So, I mean, that's part of like Lisa and I are talking about the women's group, but that's like what the women do, right? Like we get together, we have our wine, but it's like, hey, let me run this thing by you that I'm dealing with. And so it's not always just in the form of somebody in the industry, I would say. I can't name them all, but I've had people who have obviously worked at TIAA who have been excellent mentors, because TIAA is not like it's not like a normal sort of company, that you come into. There's a lot going on, right? In that it's got retirement, it has annuities, it's investing in real estate, it's investing in other things. We just acquired a big company, and so there's a lot of things going on to navigate. And so having people at work, that's been super important. But also I think having mentors outside of the industry to just bounce things off of, who are in very different industries, is also important. Again, I have a ton of mentors that I reach out to for different things. My attorney that I work with every day on my deals, like, we have these business conversations, and then like we go off and I say, hey, let's talk about how to manage X, Y, and Z. And so we'll have another conversation that has nothing to do with the deal that we're.
Pamela West, thank you for coming on the podcast. You were great. It's so wonderful to get to know you better.
It really has been wonderful to get to know you.
I hope you and Lisa can find a time to meet up. Lisa
So
loves
I
to
was
drink
going to make a
wine.
deal
She
with
does
Lisa,
not
by the
stop
way.
drinking
Chris,
wine.
love you and everything, but I gotta grab a drink with Lisa. Like, she's in the next town over. So
Definitely.
Lisa, let's make a deal.
People, even if it's not the next town over, prefer to hang out with Lisa than me. So
True.
Thank you for listening to Beyond the Resume, a Jackson Lucas podcast where we take a deep dive into the career journeys of some of the top minds in real estate and equip you with the knowledge to move forward in your path towards the success you've envisioned. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe to Beyond the Resume. We're grateful for your support. All episodes of Beyond the Resume are brought to you by Jackson Lucas, building inclusive and diverse businesses through talent acquisition. Visit us at jacksonlucas.com.